In this video, we are going to learn lesson 7.6, sketching a function graph. The objective is I will sketch the graph of a function when given a real-world situation. The essential question is, how does sketching a graph of a function help you to determine the behavior of the function? Okay, make sure you have the objective written down. Let's look at example number 1. An athlete measures her pulse rate during a 50-minute workout. The workout includes a 10-minute warm-up period and a 5-minute cool-down period. Sketch and label a graph showing her pulse rate during her workout. All right, so they just described a real-world situation, and we are going to sketch a graph for it. The graph that they want us to sketch is the pulse rate during her workout. So let's label the graph that. Pulse rate during workout. That's the title of the graph. That's what they want us to sketch. All right, there's certain things that we want to figure out and label to be able to sketch our graph. The first thing we need to figure out, oh my gosh, sorry guys. Oh no. The first thing, we want to figure out are the variables, number 1, the variables being related. All right, so we want to think about, it says, sketch a graph showing her pulse rate during the workout. So remember, variables are things that change. All right, so the things that are changing during her workout are the pulse rate and the time. And the time here is in minutes. So we'll say that the variables are going to be the pulse rate, which could be R, and then time, which in this case is in minutes. That could be T. Okay. Remember, time is your input. Okay. Because time passes, right, the input is like the cause, the output is the effect. Because time passes, your pulse rate is changing. So we have our input and our output now. All right, and we know that when we have a graph, the output units, which is your pulse rate in this case, are written along the y-axis, your pulse rate. And the input units, which is time and minutes, is always along the x-axis. Time and minutes. All right, make sure you leave enough space above the time and minutes so you can label different intervals for that. Okay, the second thing we have to do after we label the figure out the variables being related is we have to figure out, number 2, the key words that describe the relationship. All right, so let's go back to the little paragraph. It says, an athlete measures her pulse rate during a 50-minute workout. The workout includes a 10-minute warm-up period and a 5-minute cool-down period. All right, so, well, some of the key words here are the fact that there's a 50-minute workout. That's the total workout. And then it says the workout includes a 10-minute warm-up period and a 5-minute cool-down period. Okay, remember we learned in 7.5 about increasing, decreasing, and constant intervals? When we're sketching a graph, we want to think about where is the graph going to be increasing, decreasing, and constant. So when we have the fact that it says a 10-minute warm-up period, when you warm up your pulse rate, right, from your normal pulse rate, when you start exercising and it warms up, it's an increasing interval. So the 10-minute warm-up on our graph is going to be an increasing interval. And then when it says the 5-minute cool down, when you cool down after your workout, towards the end of it, it's when you start slowing down. That's when your pulse rate starts to slow down. So that's a decreasing interval. Your pulse rate is going to slow down. Okay, now that we have labeled, thought about the keywords that describe the relationship, what we're going to do now, the third thing we have to do is sketch and label the graph. Okay, right, the first thing we had to do was figure out the variables being related, then we have to figure out the keywords, and then the last thing is we're going to sketch and label the graph. Okay, well, we have the increasing interval and we have the decreasing interval. So we have to figure out, well, what's my constant interval going to look like? Because if you look at the total workout time, it's 50 minutes, but we have only accounted for 10 minutes, which is the increasing interval, and then 5 minutes, which is the decreasing interval, the cool down. So we have to figure out, well, the constant interval would be what's left of the workout, right? We have 50, but we only have 10 minutes and 5 minutes accounted for, which would only make 15 minutes. So how do we figure out the constant interval? Well, we have to make an equation to solve for what the constant interval would be. So to figure out the constant interval, we know that we have a 10-minute warm-up period plus a 5-minute cool-down period plus the constant interval, but we don't know what the constant interval is, so let's make that x. Remember, if you don't know what something is, you can make it a variable. And the total equals 50 minutes. So now let's solve for x to figure out the constant interval. So we have 10 plus 5 is 15, right? We combine these. Plus x equals 50. Then we're going to subtract 15 from both sides, and we're left with x equals 35. That's the constant interval. That's when you have a steady pulse rate. This is your constant interval. Right, because the warm-up is when your pulse rate's increasing, the cool-down is when your pulse rate is decreasing. So the constant would be you have a steady pulse rate for 35 minutes. That's when you're doing your workout. So now let's go over and we have to sketch and label the graph. All right, we know that we have a 50-minute workout, so let's do our intervals. The time we'll do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, this is just a sketch, so do your best to make the same distance between the spaces. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes in our workout. Okay. And we know that the first part of it is the 10-minute warm-up. And it's an increasing interval. But let's start the pulse rate. We're going to start the pulse rate right here, okay, when the pulse rate starts. Because obviously you are not dead, so you do have a pulse rate, so you're not going to start at the origin. And it says for the first 10 minutes, we have an increasing interval. So let's show that it's increasing. In the interval from 0 to 10, it's increasing. And then we know that the 5-minute cool down period is a decreasing interval. So over here, the last 5 minutes would be from 45 minutes to 50 minutes. Line it up with the 45 right here, and we're going to make it come down. Okay. Make sure it lines up with 45 minutes because the last 5 minutes. And then the in-between here is our constant interval. This should be a straight line completely across. All right, so the last thing we want to do is label it. This is the warm-up. Right, this is right here is the pulse rate at rest. That's the normal pulse rate. Here is the steady pulse rate. That's during the workout. And then here, right here is your cool down period. You're decreasing. Okay. Now that you have completed example number 1, you want to try the Got It number 1, the real world situation, and then watch the Got It video to make sure you have it correct.